Hey there, everyone. It is Megan Davis Aderele, your spiritual business advisor. And for those of you that don't know me, I teach coaches, healers, and other transformational leaders who are building their life and legacy brands. I teach you how to master your energetics as well as your strategy so that you can truly begin to manifest your visions into reality so that you can get to your next level of peace, purpose, prosperity, and ultimately to your profits. Tonight, I have a very special guest. I have Miss Jwuanita Core. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell the people who it is that you are and what it is that you do?
Hello, hello, hello. Thank you for inviting me here tonight. I am Jwuanita Core. I am the owner of JIT Tax and Accounting Firm. I have two firms, one in Boston, one in Atlanta. And what we do is our main audience, our main clients are mostly other small business owners like myself, and we help you manage, assist in supporting and keeping your profits. So basically, everything you make, trying to make sure that you bring that money home. That's basically what we do, and we help support you throughout your business process with financing, loans, business structure, entity status, different things like that. So we're kind of like a one-stop shop accounting firm with a lot of small business support.
Yes. And so you all, she has been my CFO, my tax lady. I call it a money lady, in-house coaching advisor for a lot of our clients. And I wanted to bring her on because we have a lot of sidebar conversations. And so I had really suggested that we come on live and just talk about some type of myths. And I know we have a few things that we want to talk about, but what one of the things that I wanted to talk about based upon what you just said is you basically still call yourself a small business, right? You have multiple offices, you're at a certain price point. We don't have to kind of say that what you generate per year. But why do you still repeatedly identify as a small business?
Mhm. Well, one of the main reasons I identify as a small business is because, according to the tax code and the tax law, in the federal guidelines, you're a small business if you're still making under $2.5 million, or if you have less than 50 employees, I believe. I think the number changed with that. But a lot of people don't know that. So, depending on how much revenue you're bringing in, will still consider you to be a small business owner. And I'm doing awesome, I'm doing great, but I haven't reached that $2.5 million yet. But who knows? I mean, collectively. And another reason why I don't say that is because businesses also feed off of net profits, and we're always hearing this six-figure, seven-figure earners, multiple six, seven. But accountants like myself, we always want to see, let me see your books. Like when someone says that to me, I want to see how much they're bringing home. I want to see how much of that is actually coming in revenue. We have even clients who are in partnerships, and they will consider themselves six and seven figure earners when it's really the business that's earning those figures. So that's one of the things we'll talk about tonight. But
Yes.
that's why. So you'll hear me say that I'm still a small business, because considering yourself a large business has a lot to do with a lot of other things as well. Assets. There's so many different things that can also still consider you a small business. Mhm.
Yes. And so with that same energy as in mind, right, I think that really leads to um the conversation at hand, right? Of as to why we were like, hey, let's go live and talk about this. Because a lot of times you'll hear people online say, oh, I've made X number of dollars, right? I made six figures, I made seven figures, I've made multiple six or whatever else it is. But clearly and distinctly, there is a difference between making a certain amount of money, paying yourself amount of money, and profiting. And so, what I want you to do is just talk about, kind of the difference between making versus profiting, right? Because I think there's a lot of misconceptions out there, right, about people making money and just having these so-called income claims online. And so if you could just kind of talk about that, about some of those biggest misconceptions and why people should be careful based upon some of these income claims that people are making.
Yes, I could definitely talk about that. So one of the things that people, tend to always say now, I hear all these making six figures, making seven figures. So it's kind of a plight on, this whole million, people making millions of dollars or making X amount of dollars. And the interesting part of it is, like you said, there's three parts of that. So how much, revenue did your business make? So that would be considered your gross. And then there's also this idea of profits. So, once you have expenses for your business, then those things offset your revenue. And then now you have what we call a net income, right? And then that's basically what your business is profiting. So let's just say a business brings in 100,000, but they have $50,000 in expenses. So they're in theory netting $50,000. The third question to move on that no one talks about and no one brings up is how much of that did you bring home? How much of the 50,000 did you put in your pocket? How much did that go towards your assets or savings or things like that, meaning the business owner? So when business owners talk about how much they make, the business could have brought in six figures. Unless you pocketed the whole 100,000, then you did not bring in six figures. And unless you pocketed the whole 50, then you didn't even bring in 50,000. Because there's a lot of things that goes into the business has to keep running. So you might have to have reserves, which a lot of people don't have, and that's part of the problem. So if you're a business owner and you took the whole 50,000, that's a problem because your business needs to run on itself. So your business out of that 50 should be leaving money into the business in order for the business to run. The business should be its own entity. So it has its own expenses. It has its own reserve accounts, its own savings, and people don't do that. So a lot of time what owners are doing is they're even stealing from their businesses. They're taking home more than they should. That's not how it works. So in theory, or sometimes we see that business owners overspend, but you still have to get to that third line and say, okay, what did your business make? What did you net? And then what did you take home as an owner? And partly of what we try to do is we try to teach our customers the best way of financial health, like a healthy way of making sure that their business is sustainable as well as their own personal profits are sustainable.
Yes. And so, as my financial coach, right, I think sometimes we have to have some of those intimate moments. And I feel like you're sometimes just as intimate with me as my spouse, right? Because a lot of times people, for one, finances are an uncomfortable conversation because especially from a lot of marginalized communities, a lot of times finances is not something that's really talked about in our households, or it's not those things that we were taught. It was, oh, wait till I get paid, or, we don't have the funds for that and that kind of stuff. And so a lot of times I have found that those same types of misconceptions and that same type of trauma, right? Let's be real, a lot of times that's trauma. It impacts how we show up as business owners, right? And how we treat our business and how we treat our business finances. And what I have found is, just even with over my years of coaching, a lot of times when it comes down to coaching and consulting, that is one of the easier ways and the less costly entry points to get into business these days, because you don't have all of that overhead, right? You don't necessarily have to hire a large staff right away. You don't have to have a brick and mortar location, right? You don't have to have all these things. And then coupled with all the advancements with, AI, you don't have to have a large team. You can really scale your business in a very lean model, right? And one of the models that I really teach is having that group coaching component. And so when you look at a lot of online businesses, you have the ability to be very profitable, right, in the business because you don't have all that traditional overhead as other businesses. And so, from a tax and accounting perspective, what would you say are some of the biggest ways to bridge the gaps between those people who maybe aren't looking at the type of revenue months that they want to have? They don't have that profit. What are some of those things that you think that that you would just tell someone who need more money, need to make more money?
The first thing I would tell them, you brought it up earlier, is that we have a huge disadvantage. We have what's called, and I can't remember where I heard it from, but I remember when I heard it, I was like, wow, that's deep. We have a generational financial trauma, right? That we don't have great financial discipline. Like, we're not disciplined with our finances. We don't tend to know how to budget well and spend well. We don't tend to know how to make good decisions when it comes to money, understanding the value of assets, understanding the value of retirement, all of these things that, margins, things like that. So I think a lot of people get into business, but they don't really think about what I talked about this on another one of workshops, is they don't think about all the hats they have to wear. So they have to be the CEO, they have to be the CFO, they have to be all these things. So when people don't want to hire out, they don't want to hire someone like me, they don't want to hire someone like you, great coaches. They don't understand how that's going to actually affect their finances, because if you don't hire me, then you have to be the CFO. You have to put on that hat. And if you don't, then you're going to end up spending money that you normally would not spend if you had someone who kind of has you accountable to what you're doing. Because to be honest, a lot of small businesses, no matter how much they make, they just don't know how to manage the money they have. And that's the advice that I would give, especially to whether you're a brick and mortar, whether you're online business, any of those businesses, when it comes to overhead, and even if you're saving, the reason why you're not seeing those margins, you're not seeing those that revenue come through, you're not seeing the profits, 99% of it is money management, is how you're handling your money management. And systems. Do you have the right systems in place to be able to track your finances, to be able to track your leads? So it would be learning about money and being your own CFO and learning what that means, hiring someone else out if you don't have the proper strengths when it comes to managing money and accounting, and having the proper systems. Those are the three things I would say. If you're going like this, what? I made that much money? Where did it go? If you're saying that,
We had those conversations.
Right. If you're a person on this live and you're accountant, or it's the end of the year and you looked and you made X amount of money and you're like, where did that money go? Then that means you're not being your own CFO, or you're not managing your money correctly, or you just don't have the correct systems in place. At any given time, I could pretty much tell you where my money is, where it went, and where it's going to go in the near future. Yeah.
And I think that's important. Two things that you kind of recently brought up that I want to talk about is, one, some of the challenges, like the software and everything, and then also team building. So I guess my first question to you is, I know that you work with a lot of 7-figure entrepreneurs. And so what have you seen have been some of the biggest challenges that are out here right now as they're trying to scale to, or scale beyond 6 figures? And maybe how can they overcome some of these hurdles to achieve, that sustainable growth that they want?
Well, like I said, one of the things that is probably going to be repetitive to me is going to be money management. I would, when people come into my office, I'm considering like the cleanup lady too, because I'm cleaning up a lot of damage that has already been done over the years. If it's they might haven't done their taxes for X amount of years, or they might have received letters from the IRS. They never answered, they never responded to. So now they want to clean that up. A lot of times what happens is they want something. So they need to get a loan, or, they need to, do something, buy a car, a home. So these things is usually what sparks them to say, oh, I have to go call X, Y, and Z, someone to help me. And then what happens is now I'm cleaning it up so that they can be able to buy a loan. I mean, get a loan, buy a car, buy a home. And what happens is they need to be doing that throughout their time that they're in their business. So when you want to talk about revenue, when you want to talk about scaling, when you want to talk about any of those things, it still comes down to money management. If you don't know how much you need to break even, and you don't know how much you need to meet your goals, because you don't really know how much you're really making and bringing in, then how are you going to do that? I think a lot of people do the math in their head, and they're like, oh, okay, I brought in this month, so I know this is how much I have to spend. And that's not really the way it works, So you can coach them, Megan, all day long on bringing in leads and bringing in sales and bringing in the money. So the revenue can come. They can make those, $10,000 months, those $20,000 a month with your coaching, because you're great at that, right? You're great at being able to help people with scaling and growing their revenue, things like that. But if they don't manage it well, if they are not using the systems to keep up with it, then it really does. Then making 6-7 figures doesn't really matter. And that's what I try to explain to a lot of clients, is that before you can just talk about your sales, you also need to talk about how you're going to manage the growth. Some people, the growth comes and they just don't even know how to manage it. It's gone in seconds.
That's one of the biggest things too, is dealing with a lot of clients. They go from trying to make money to multiplying money, right? But it's phases. And one of the methodologies that I teach is looking at first, how can you make money? Then how can you master money? Then how can you manage it? From there, how can you be a minister, minister with your money? And then the highest level is, how can you mastermind with your money, right? Because it's levels. And sometimes people, they try to skip up all the way to the top, or skip different tiers. And so it's important that once you make it, you then multiply it before you can really begin to, you first have to make it, then you have to manage it before you can actually then multiply it. And that's the same thing too, when I look at certain people and they want to start going out and like running Facebook ads for their business, right? But they haven't tested it. They haven't tried to see that, that they're able to convert, clients and things of that nature. And so when you even look at something such as like Facebook ads, those type of things are just really beginning to amplify exactly what it is that you want to do. Which brings me to my next question, right? Because I think for a lot of people that are really looking at scaling and growing their businesses, hiring a team is something that they can either do too soon or not soon enough, right? And so if you can just talk to us, and I know we've had this conversation in the past, and you've made me hire some people to do different types of things, and I was like, are you sure? But sometimes there is growth with hiring, right? And what can you say to a person that's really looking to be able to scale and grow their business, who really needs that support?
Exactly. So one of the things that one of the models that we do is that we find out. So I always say time is money, right? And what we do is we always find out what your time is worth. So one of the reasons why it's important to hire out is because you need to know how much your time is worth. If your specialty and your skill is worth, let's just say $300 an hour, right? Like ideally, and we talked about how you can, and this could be at a later time, but how you can figure out what your hourly amount is. So like, really quickly, you went to salary.com and someone was doing your job, your specialty, how much would they be getting paid or whatever. And then you can multiply that to find out what your hourly wage is. That's one way. That's the quickest way to do it. And then now you need to assess how much time you're spending on other activities that are not producing $300 an hour. So I'd give you an example. If it's taking me, because I don't like social media. I don't know nothing about. I know a little bit about Canva, but it's not my strength. Those things are just not my strengths. I'm sure if I sat down and I went through it and figured it out, I could. But if I spend an hour on trying to put up a social media post, I just lost $300. Because if my time is worth $300, I spent $300 wasting my time to put up one social media post that might have cost me $75 an hour. Okay. So you have to put a cost on your time. And when you do that, you need to be able to say, okay, now this is where I need to be able to hire out, because I could be spending my time making $300. Okay. Not losing. I'm losing money. Those are the tasks. And you brought it up. It is very important to understand that there is a time when you can do that, right? You can't just come into the gate and say that. But that's where you have to kind of be savvy enough to know when is it actually, when are you able to make that $300? Now, if your business hasn't gotten to a point where you really are losing $300 in that hour or in that time, then you do have to work your way up to when that is possible. And the only example I can give to you is that if that lead were to come, right, you put that Facebook ad out there. If that lead were to come, then you know that you can fill up your calendar, to make that $300, if that makes sense. So now you know that spending that $75 an hour to get that work done is going to come right back to you when you get that lead. You mentioned it earlier, like people are not thinking about that. People are not thinking about the amount they spend on marketing versus what it brings them back in profit. So some people are so afraid to pay for marketing, but you got to do those numbers and say, well, if I spend X amount on ads and leads, how much does that bring back to me? Is it equal to one lead? Is it equal to two leads? Am I doubling my money? And again, what does that do to me and my time? You want to spend your time on things that are going to actually be generating the revenue, not on thinking you're saving your time, saving money, small money, by doing a lot of minimal things on your own. And if you're great, I always tell people, if you're great at, if you could do your own taxes and you're great at it, cool, don't call me. Don't call me. Like, if you can do that, great. But if you're spending time trying to do it, if you're trying to figure it out and it just doesn't come to you naturally, then you need to be hiring people who can, you can benefit and put your time in other places, because time is money.
Right. That's good. Thank you. And, especially like with that, right? And you look at how time is money. Business is an investment, whether you're investing from an energetic standpoint, the time, the energy, the money, the resources, whatever it is. And a lot of times on social media, people just make, being a business owner so glamorous. And so this is one of the reasons why I wanted to start having these conversations to share with people how they're able to really begin to grow and scale their business. And so one of my next questions for you is, let's talk about software, right? Because I think one of the biggest things that people really need in their businesses is having the right software, systems, apps. And so what will be, say your top 3, 4, 5 recommended apps that most entrepreneurs should have if they're really looking to grow and scale their business?
So we could talk specific apps, but I'll just kind of talk about some that I use. I think that there's so many out there that I think people need to find the ones that, work best for them, right? Like there could be people that's visual people. So they need software that looks visually appealing. Remember, I talked earlier about time. Time is money. So you need to pick apps and software that keep you efficient, right? What's going to get you through your work quicker but efficiently versus maybe what might be mine. So if you get a recommendation from someone and you try to use it and it doesn't work, I would just recommend, trying other systems, trying other things similar that it still gets the job done, but something that works well with you. So I do want to say that when I talk about these things, and probably mention more than one. So one of the things that you want to make sure you always have, at the start of your business, so when you're starting your business, or even if you're still in business and you're growing, is you want to make sure that you have some type of what do you call, like, the where you're storing your records, some type of storage, right? um OneDrive, the Google Drive, things like that, like, yeah. And I mean, nowadays this is cloud based, a cloud based time, and it's easy to have things on the cloud, so you need to be able to do that. I'll give you an example. When someone comes to me and asks me to start their business and create an entity for them, I'll do that, and I'll send them all their paperwork, their EIN, their organization documents, the W-9. They get all that, and within a short period of time, they'll come back to me and say, "Hey, can you send me my EIN? Can you send me my W-9?" And I'll say, "Well, I sent it to you in a whole email. Like, I sent you all of that." And they'll say they don't have it. They can't find it. That right there is going to be a problem, because you need to be able to have a system where you're storing all of your business documents, important, like, and this is like right at the beginning, I'm saying business documents, important documents, client folders. You need to be able to access all your clients, their information, things like that, so you can be able to see them in a clear view, and be able to access them exactly when you need it. A lot of times, businesses can't move forward with what they need to do because they don't even have a simple file storage system, and there's plenty out there. So Megan just pulled up one. This looks like it's more looking a little bit like a OneDrive.
Yeah.
And yeah, you see how she just has all of these folders.
I can't click in these folders because I don't know what y'all might see, but
she got color coded. See, I'm not even all that deep. I don't even got mine color coded, but she got color coded things here, guys, things like that. So this is like, and there's plenty of systems, but at the minimum, you need to have some type of storage, file storage for all of the things. And even when you get to finances, it comes in handy. But all businesses should have some type of file storage and backup. So clouds go down, as we seen the other day. These systems go down. So all of your important business documents should also be backed up somewhere that maybe is not even on the cloud. I mean, I have my stuff backed up as well. So you should also do that, have some type of backup. Those are important documents as well, too. If something happens, if you got to go to court, any of that, you're going to need it. So keep up with those document storage. Mm-hmm.
And, I think for that, before you go on to some of the other recommended software, the reason why I wanted to show everybody just kind of like the back end of it, because as you really begin to grow and scale your team, it's important that as you're organized, that's how your team is, because a lot of times our team is a direct reflection on how it is that we are and how it is that we're operating. And so just about 2 months ago, I had onboarded 2 new virtual assistants, right? And so I had people that are dedicated, doing some of my social media, even though I've managed other people's social media and things like that in the past, right? But I have all of the documents, and then I'm basically just able to share with them with their company emails and give them access to certain folders and certain all the logos that they need, if there's certain apps that they need, if it's other things that I've downloaded. And so as you're looking to really begin to grow and scale, at that point, that's when you're beginning to really make some of your standard operating procedures, and you're looking to make all of these various things so that you can really begin to grow and scale your business. And so I think it's just important, and utilize exactly what it is that you have before you go out and purchase any other type of, other apps. Utilize those resources that you're already paying for. And so the biggest thing that I would tell people to do is to actually go ahead and to look at, some of the systems that they have and that they have access to already, so that you can take account of exactly what it is that you have, so that you can then make an informed business decision to see if it's something that you need to actually purchase, or can you use what you already got.
Yeah.
So what else? What are some other software that you feel that, that we really need from that accounting and tax standpoint?
So some other software you want to have is your client, like a CRM system, or some type of way that you're keeping track of your clients and the leads, that you're getting. You always want to be able to refer back to it, even in terms of revenue and expenses, which we're going to talk about that next, is, being able to get back to your clients. Like if you had a client, you need to contact them. You want to follow up with them again to, upsell them, whatever it is. You need to be able to communicate with your client through a system that is tracking your clients. Now there's so many systems that you can have, like almost all in ones, that will email, your clients, set them up. I mean, I know you could talk about that a lot more. These are areas that I would not consider myself, savvy in. Like I would tell you that I hire out for that kind of stuff, because those, again, and I pay for software for those kind of things, because I already know that I'm not great at them, like funnels, like all these fancy words they got too, right? So, those are the kind of things that are just as important as financial tools, is the tools that you also have that coincide with communicating with your clients. And guess who I turn to when I need to figure out these kind of systems? I'm calling the Auto2 agency. I'm calling, Megan, because, again, I know when I have a weakness, when I need to seek help and hire in that area. So that's what I do. And, a lot of those systems that are client-based, CRM-based, you got to find someone who knows how to, who knows the right software to put in. So maybe you could talk a little bit more about that, Meg.
Okay, cool. So I think, and so like what Jay is right. She's hired us over the years to help implement various systems and software. And so that's one of the areas that we, as a company with the Auto2 agency, that will help our clients to implement. And I think that as you're looking at CRMs, which is customer relationship management, that's what CRM stands for, is looking at those ways of how can you look at the systems, the software, the strategies. And like what Jwuanita said, is that some platforms now, they have all-in-one platforms. There's so many different things, such as ClickFunnels. There's Kajabi. There is one of the systems that we implement with our clients is a Go High Level software. I can actually show you all a white label version of a demo site that we have within Go High Level. And at some point or another, what I'll do is I will do a deep dive in on some of the back end of systems and softwares to help you to be able to scale and grow your business. But like what Ms. Core said, is that this is an all-in-one platform. And so it allows you to be able to have all of your contacts in here. It allows you to see the payments, right, where you can do some of the payment links and all those things. It allows you to be able to do some of the email marketing, right, within there. And then it also allows you to kind of do some of your sites. your memberships, and then that kind of thing, as well as some of your emails and text messages. And so when you're looking at building out your funnels to be able to grow and scale your business, this is one of the types of software which is considered to be an all-in-one platform, right? So that's one. But I also want people to keep in mind that as you're looking to grow and scale, sometimes there are industry specific platforms that you can also utilize to help you to grow and scale your business. One of the things that we set up for JIT tax team a couple of years ago, and I know they changed it, you can give the correct name, but it was actually Mondstadt. And so that was an all-in-one platform as well that we set up from a tax and accounting standpoint. And one of the reasons when we set it up for Miss Core team, right, and her team was because it did a lot of the social media. It provided her with a newsletter. It provided her a way to, communicate with her clients. If she did not already have a website, she still could have built a website off of that system as well. And so when you think about how you want to grow your business and how you want to scale your business, I think that it's important that you look at the business model and what are some of the objectives that you're looking to achieve. When we set that system up for her, it was, hey, I want to start posting on social media. I want a newsletter. I want a different and new way to really begin to communicate with a lot of our clientele. And so that was the system that we implemented in for her. But now, after years of coaching, she's ready for other and upgraded systems, right? But the thing about it is we won't get rid of the original system and software because that has a lot of automation, and it's certain things that we can pick and choose what kind of goes into our newsletter and able to add other things. So as you're looking at growing and scaling your business, it's really about assessing, where you are and where you want to be, and then taking it a step further and assessing the tools and software that you currently have and those things that you need to be able to grow and scale your business so you can get to the next level.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So everything that Megan just said is pretty much what I would suggest for businesses. It's really, really that client management system is it even for me, like the Mondstadt that she was talking about that they helped me set up. It has content that is specific for my industry. So there's so many things out there, especially with AI, things like that, where you can pretty much, and these things cost money, so you have to put it in your company budget. But again, you have to understand what you're paying for to do automatically for you versus, again, on time versus what you're going to spend time doing yourself when you think you're saving yourself money when in theory you're losing money. So the system that Megan had initially set up for us feeds other financial information out to my clients. So I'm not sitting down. I'm not, spending hours creating my own newsletter and sending it out. This is something that will send my clients information every month that is crucial for them, deadlines, things like that. And it just happens automatically. Of course, there's some things that I personally like to put out and personally want my clients to know. So I will also, be able to go in and do things like that. But you need to look for industry specific tools that will basically be able to keep you in communication with your client. I'm sure we all have email. I'm sure you're flooded sometimes with emails from other companies who are just trying to keep you in the loop. So think about that for yourself. Why do we have all this junk mail? Why are people, spamming me every day, and that's why, because they understand the value it has to keep in communication with your clients on an ongoing basis. And the same way that they're keeping them on your mind, you need to be keeping yourself on your clients' minds as well. So that look for industry specific tools that will automatically engage your clients, not something you're spending hours and time putting together. Mm-hmm.
And so what other software or apps or systems would you say that you
Mm-hmm.
would recommend that every small business owner like must have on their phone
Mm-hmm.
as they're trying to just manage their day to day?
So the last, group system I would say is always going to be something that's going to track your finances. Um, People are in different stages with this. It's hard for me to just, again, this is where I can't just say, oh, have go to QuickBooks and get QuickBooks. I am a QuickBooks user. I love QuickBooks, but I'm an accountant, so that might be different for me. One of the things you need to do when it comes to your finances and tracking your finances is really to assess where your business is at. If your business is anybody's business who's pulling in over six figures and then you don't have an accounting system, then you're already not, doing what you need to do. So you need to go back and assess why you're not tracking every single dollar. The reason why you're not keeping that money in your pocket is because you don't know where it's going. Okay. So all businesses should have, matter of fact, you're bound by the IRS guidelines to track your finances. That is a requirement of any type of established business, LLCs, corporations, S corps. They all, one of the requirements is that you keep up with and track your business finances in order to be able to pay your taxes. So you need to have systems for that. I have clients who still use Excel, and they will send me an Excel file and they are doing a great job. You know what I mean? Like they can give me a profit and loss based on all the things that they did that came in and went out. And I love it. And they could send it to me and I can get the information I need. So if you're a person who, can work off of that, cool. If you're not, that doesn't mean that you're off the hook, because there's so many other apps, like Megan said, in our phones. There's Zero, there's QuickBooks Online. There's so many, even for, like, I try to tell my clients, there's one called Mile IQ, because I know every time you go to your accountant's asking you, how much miles did you put on your car? Where did you go? You have to be able to track those things. So Mile IQ is a great one. You turn it on your phone. The first like 20, I forgot how many miles is free. Then you have to pay for extra mile, when you go extra miles, but you could tell it when you're going somewhere personal. You could tell it when you're going somewhere business, and it will calculate it for you. And then at the end of the year, you know how much miles that you have put on your car for business. So that's one of them. When you are tracking, I tell people this, even we can piggyback off of the online system. When you're out and you're having lunch, or you go and you buy something in cash, you take a quick picture of your receipt. That's what I do. I write on it and I say what it was for. So if I'm down in Florida and I'm having
We might be in Atlanta.
I'm having lunch with the Audit Agency at La Peace. And I just, will write on my receipt, lunch with Audit Agency,
Client gifts,
discussing marketing. And then you just take a quick picture of that, and then you upload that into your drive, and then you could toss that receipt to the side. There's no longer a day where now you have to keep a shoebox full of receipts. You don't have to do that. So you could take a picture of your receipt. You could upload it into your drives. Keep them by, I would say, year. And then if you are using an accounting system like a QuickBooks, they allow you to actually attach that receipt to the transaction. So like when the bank draws down your, whatever it is through your bank, you can actually attach that, so that if you ever need to look back and see, what it was, how much you paid, whatever, you can be able to see that receipt. There are some companies that have to be able to keep up with their books, but there's a lot of companies that don't. And again, the first thing I tell you is to have some type of financial budgeting and accounting system. That is very important when it comes to managing your business finances and keeping the money in your pockets. There's also tools that I encourage my business owners that track their net worth. So this is one that people are not understanding
I
either.
better get some pen and paper, right? If you
So
cannot ready.
yeah, you need to know what your net worth is, and how you figure that out is there's apps for that too. Empower has a great one. Um, uh, Vanguard has a great one. There's some other ones. Even some of your banks, Chase Bank is built in. If you have Chase, they have a net worth calculator. And what it does is it takes all of your assets, which we could talk about that all day, and it lumps them in all your liabilities, and it lumps them together to figure what your net worth is. And a lot of people, you don't even know what their net worth is. You need to, and what that is how much do you have in something that has a fair market value, so something that's worth something, an asset, and then something that takes from it, which is a liability or a debt, and it gets you down to your net worth. And you always want to strive for your net. We might have money goals, cash flow goals. So what you bring home every day, every month, those are cash flow goals. What you have in net worth, that's where you're talking about, generational wealth and retirement and basically residual income, all of these wealth. Those are the things you hear. Mm-hmm. That has to do with net worth. It has nothing to do with how much you bring home every day. So those are other conversations as a business owner that you need to be able to have. And guess what? You can't have those conversations unless you have the right systems in place to track what your net worth is, to track what your profits and losses is. So those are the kind of things, those type of systems you need to make sure you have, which are financial systems that's tracking your finances, both personal and business. Okay. So your business needs to have tracking systems. Your personal needs to have tracking systems. And the reason why it's so important to track systems personally as a business owners, I always tell business owners, you need to know how much you need to take home every month personally, right? Don't we talk about that? It's like, what are you striving for if you don't even know? So if you don't know your comfort level, like, okay, this is what I need to bring home, because we're all doing this business to be able to support our personal lifestyles. Like, no one's just doing business to do business, right? At the end of the day, you're trying to support yourself and your family. So how much does it cost to support yourself and your family? Some people are transitioning from 9 to 5s into business. I would not tell you to do that until you know how much you need to make up from leaving your 9 to 5 to be in business full time. You need to know that number. You need to say, for me to comfortably leave my job, I need to be making X amount of money out of my business that's going in my pocket. So this is not how much the business is making. Okay. That has nothing to do. Your business is making 100,000 and you need 100,000, then it's not time to leave. Okay.
That is one of the things that I want us to kind of go over. I probably maybe like 2 more questions or so, but a lot of us grew up, right, with 6 figures as the goal. And we realized that 6 figures,
it's poverty in America right now.
Right. It's
poverty.
You be looking at stuff and you be like, I don't think I made that. We're like, what you mean? By the time you pay whatever expenses that you have, right? It's really poverty, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the fun activities, and I guess I could share my screen. Let me be sure I'm not about to share. That I was telling people, because a lot of my messaging lately has really been guided to show people and to really share with people, like, to be making more than just the standard $100,000. And so one of the assignments that I was giving people to do is due to inflation, because a lot of times people feel like that they made it once they've made that 6-figure mark, right? And a lot of us are 70s, 80s babies. And so just do a fun activity if you can at home And what is, how did I do that before? 100 a today worth, and let's just say whatever year you were born, right? And so when you look at these things, is you can look at these kind of calculators, right? And so if you had, this is the wrong one.
I think you said work, and you got work up there instead of work. Yeah.
Look at this. Can't even do stuff, right? So if we look at $100,000 in 1982, right, till today, how much is that? So it's about $325,000 today.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at whatever year you were born in, right? If you look at that year, right? That's the minimum that I'm telling people now to strive for. Because what your perception was of what that value of that money was, right? And you
Mm-hmm.
know, hey, maybe you have goals that are more than this, or maybe you have goals that are less than this. But the reality is from inflation and from what our parents kind of taught us was the six figures is now worth $325,000. And
Mm-hmm.
so, you know, just have some fun. And if you are really, you know, if you could ever kind of get stuck with, you know, income goals and what are some of the things that I can strive for, I'm not saying that that's just the number that you need to be striving for, but just to give that as a starting point for you of a way so that you're able to really begin to look at those ways to grow and scale your business. If there's a different year when you realize that you wanted to make millions or whatever that six figures was, right? Because a lot of us little girls, we had these dreams of we want to be multimillionaires by the time we were, you know, 40 years old. And so when did you have that? And look at what that value of that, whatever that dollar amount was during that time frame, so that you can really begin to reframe your mind. Because that's a lot of times what it is looking at those ways of how can you reframe, you know, your mindset so that you can get to the reality of what is. Because listen, gas is not the same amount, food is not the same amount, mortgage is not the same amount, right? And so do those type of activities so that you can get it into your context, especially if you have an issue with struggling and pricing your worth, right? Is look at that and just tell yourself those things of what I knew $100,000 to be is now $385,000. $385,000 should be the minimum of my new reality, right? And so just saying those things to yourself and looking at what are some of those things and those processes and those systems that you really need to implement so that you can really begin to start again reframing your mind, getting that worth of, you know, of what it is that you need to do so that you can begin to go and scale to your next level. So that's a little fun exercise that I've been doing with some of my clients, is to Google to get that base minimum of this is the minimum of what your goals should be to strive for. So
I love that. I love that. And you should take it a step further too. I always try to tell my clients when you're thinking about that number for you, because everybody's number is going to be different. And I always tell people, again, you need to, because we live in different states, you know, so the cost of living might be different. So $100,000 might go far in other states that it might not in a certain state. So you have to consider that. So a step ahead of just looking at that number, I would also tell you to think about what would be ideal for you to live comfortably, right? If it was in an ideal world, right? Let's not talk about someone else's number or six figures or seven figures. You know, I wouldn't even think about that at all. I would think about myself and my family and what number do I need for us to live comfortably? What does that ideally look like? And you got to figure that out for yourself. If you feel like, I tell people this, you know, about vacations and stuff. If you want to go on a family 3 family vacations a year and that is your goal to live comfortably, there's nothing wrong with that. But you got to put a dollar amount on that and you got to add that to your budget. You have to add that to your cost every month. If you want to save a certain amount, if you want to, and we could go all day about fire and retirement, but if you want to retire at a certain age, so what is that number? You will be surprised. A lot of times for people, when they go back and they do that exercise, it's probably about $15,000 a month. The average client that I might do like that kind of forecast tax plan, their comfort level is about $15,000 a month, right? So if that's your ideal comfort level, how much do you need to make? You know what I mean? Like, how much do you need to be making to be able to live? And I'm just talking about comfortable. This is just for you to feel like you're at least breathing and being happy every year.
Yep. And sometimes with that 15K, it's not even you hiring all the people that you need to hire. I remember when we did the exercise, I was like,
and we didn't even get to that yet. So this is just you thinking about what you need personally.
Right.
And again, this is what people, so I'm glad you brought that up, because this is what people mess up. If your number is $15,000 a month that you need to pull from your business, then that doesn't mean your business can net 15. Your business needs to be netting triple that amount.
3 or 4 times, right?
3 or 4 times that amount, so that you can take that out of your business comfortably. Because, and that's what business owners, that is one of the worst things that business owners do, is they deplete their businesses of money to satisfy what they need personally. And then when the business needs to catch them, it can't, because there's nothing there. When the business has something happen like COVID, or, you know, I'm down in Texas, we got these storms, things like this happen. You've depleted your business for your own personal uses. A lot of times it's bad money management. And now you can't even, your business can't even sustain itself for 2-3 months if that revenue is not coming in. So when you get that number, just remember that number has nothing to do with how much you bring in. So if you got a 6-figure number, it just like your example, if you got a 6-figure number as your personal number, then you need to be making 3 times that. So you should be if it's 100,000, you need to be making 300,000. Okay, your business should be bringing in 300,000 for you to be able to take home 100,000 comfortably.
Yep. I always tell people like times 3 or times 4. You that same kind of that same type of modeling as if you were pricing products, right? is having those goals.
Yeah.
And so I guess, you know, we probably need to come back at another point for a part 2, because I think we can go on and on and on. But I think my last question for you tonight is prioritization as a business owner in scaling and growing. You know, a lot of us grew up in that area where we were told to go to school, get a good job. You know, now is these student loans, is building these businesses, is supporting teams, is having these mortgages, is having these property taxes and insurance, and talk about the credit card bills and whatever else, right? And so as you're looking at growing and scaling your business, and you have your personal expenses, you have your business expenses, I understand that financial forecasting, you know, is also important, but can you kind of tell us the easiest ways to prioritize how we should be planning for us to be able to grow and scale our businesses?
So how we prioritize, again, is by coming up with that number, and then working from the top down. I think that we always try to work from the bottom of what we have. And I know even Megan has helped me with this, but if you have faith, right? Faith is going to put you at the toppest level and say, you know, you're expecting something great to happen, right? Like, you ain't talking about the minimum. We're talking about great things. So that's the same way you have to think when it comes to money, is you have to think about it on a larger scale. For your businesses, your revenue, you have to think about what's ideal for you, ideal for your company. So you start there. one of my mentors, he always said, you have to start with your end game, right? Like start when you think about goals and mindset and priority, start with your end game. So then everything that you're doing to get to that point. You're not doing it to get through tomorrow. Okay. You don't wake up today just to get through tomorrow. That's not what you should be doing. You shouldn't make business decisions to get through tomorrow. Those decisions should be stepping stones or bricks to what that future thing is, to what that big picture item is. So when you think about prioritizing, that's what you should be doing. You should be telling yourself, is this decision today that I make, if I hire someone, how does it bring me closer to that ideal goal? If I'm going to spend money on this, how does it take me to that ideal goal? And you have to really be honest with yourself, because if it does not add value, if it does not allow you to grow in the way you need to grow, then you need to say no. You need to or let it go. You know, some of us try to hold on to things, and
let it go.
Yeah, I do that's one of my things, right? Because I'm not perfect. I hold on to things. I hold on to people sometimes, you know, and sometimes, yeah, you have to be able to let it go, because maybe those people or those things are not getting you to that higher goal. They could be keeping you where you're at. So you have to be able to prioritize and make decisions every day for where you're trying to be, your end game, not from where you are today. And I think that's something I would say, even for me in my business, that has really helped me to grow and scale in a way that makes sense, because every day I show up at work working for that higher goal versus working to get me through tomorrow. Yeah, so prioritizing, I think, is really based on that. And if it ain't getting you there, then you need to reassess what you're doing and why. And then the second one is what I brought up earlier, Meg, about how much time is it taking you. So prioritizing also has to, do with that. Put that hourly wage on yourself, and don't do it on what you're making now. This is what I'm saying. If your business ain't making no money, that has nothing to do with how much you're worth an hour. Okay. Right, if you only brought in $5,000 this year, then don't go and say, oh, well, I only brought 5,000. That's all I'm worth. No. You're worth what it would cost someone else to hire you at any other level. If you were incorporate, if you were whatever your skill set is. You get what I'm saying? If you're a coach, how much would it cost to get that information from any other coach? High level. You better give yourself a raise. I have a lot of clients who their number hasn't changed since 5 years. Are you working at a job and not giving yourself a raise? So as a business owner, you need to give yourself a raise too. You need to say, I've been specializing in this for 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is. I'm now at a seasoned level. I have tenure. Like, business owners don't do that with themselves. They'll just say, I've been doing this for 15 years. And then they want accolades from that, which is amazing. But have you even really thought about what that means for you? You know what I mean? Have you thought about what specialty you now have for being in business 15 years? Right. And if you worked in corporate or somewhere else, what would your salary look like from when you started to where you would end up in 15 years? You wouldn't be making the same amount of money. So why would you charge the same amount you've been charging 15 years ago? So those are the kind of things you also need to think about when it comes to prioritizing. Is time is money. How much is your time worth? And whether you need to outsource something, which is what we talked about earlier. So those two things.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. And I'm going to come back on with some more Spiritual Business School series. So if you're not on my list, I'll drop that link in a few minutes, because those are some of the conversations that I really want people to begin to dive into is, how do they price their services? How do they actually create their packages and things of that nature? Because I think that is so important to understand pricing and pricing modules as a business owner. a lot of times, what I've seen people do, and some of the biggest mistakes that I've seen people make is, if they're accustomed to making $50 an hour, $100 an hour, or just say even like $25, $30 an hour in their business, when they first initially become business owners, they typically will add a zero to that. I've heard people say, oh, add a zero to it. And or what they'll do is they'll charge double um, what they were making in their 9 to 5, right? And so what they don't realize, that if you worked in various fields, that's typically the hourly rate that you're making is not the billable rate, right?
Mhm.
On those contracts. And so a lot of times, if you were making like $100 an hour, they could have been charging whoever you were working for, if it was certain types of things. That line item, if you actually look at the budget, it says $300, 350, $400. And so when you're going in and you're looking at providing consultation type or consultative type services, you're already underpricing yourself in the market because you don't even understand the proper pricing structure, right? And so those are some of the conversations that I want to have in the upcoming weeks. And if you want to work with Miss Core, this is her booking link to be able to book services with her online. If you go to jwtax.com/book hyphen online. And Jay, if you could just tell the people about some of the services that you're able to provide some small business owners.
Mhm. So we have a full accounting firm, so we can provide tax, all types of taxes, from personal, corporate, um, partnerships, things like that, amendments. Even if you have prior year taxes, we can look them over to see if there's some savings there that you haven't really looked at. We also do tax planning, which means that, with this current year or future years, maybe your situation has changed and you really need to look at saving money, because the one thing we don't want to do is we don't want to hand off our money to the IRS. So you got to start really tax planning to think of ways to strategize to pay the least tax liability as possible, and that has to be a strategy to that. And there's everyone else in this world, especially people who make millions of dollars, who take more home in their pocket than a lot of middle income earners, because they know how to strategize. Okay. So we do tax planning and strategy. And then we also do small business startup. So if you're looking to just start a business and you don't know where to start, then we can also help with that in terms of like setting up all your state paperwork, entity status, things like that. And then for those who already have businesses, then we also can, talk about whether your entity status is the best status for you. And also, being able to set you up with those systems I talked about, financial systems, budgeting, tracking your money, any type of things you have to do with business finance and accounting, payroll, all of those things we also offer in our firm. And then the last thing we do is we also help with documentation that you might need for loans, mortgage. A lot of our small business owners, need help when it comes to time to purchase a home, things like that. So we also will help you as well through that process if you need it.
Love it, love it, love it. And again, my name is Megan Davis Aderele. If you are interested in learning about some of the things that I do, I host a bi-weekly workshop called Systems That Scale. So if you go to meganautorele.com/systems workshop, even if you have recently attended the systems workshop, I've actually made some additional changes to it. So come in and join us. But like I said, that is my bi-weekly workshop. And that's a way for you to also to get on to my email list so that you know anytime that I go live and the next series that we will be having. So again, if you just go to meganautorele.com/systems workshop. And Ms. Core, do you have any additional closing remarks before we head out for the evening?
And just thank you. Thanks for allowing me on this platform. Thanks for all your help in, making my business what it is today in terms of scaling, connecting my spirituality to what I do every day. It's always amazing, whatever Megan tells me to do, I'll do. I think it's vice versa, right? I'm like, okay, fine, I'll do it.
Eventually, maybe not right away. Maybe not right away.
Maybe not right away, because I'm just a procrastinator sometimes. But in
Or
theory,
you at least come back around and be like, you know what, I should have did this.
I should. If I don't do it, I'm like, okay, fine. You can slap me on the hand. Well, speaking of that, what I would say is everyone needs the support of people in the business industry to support each other. So B2B it always has been important to me, which is business to business, and me supporting other business and other businesses supporting me. We know the struggle that we each go through. So I think it's a lot easier for us to be able to work and understand each other. But that's what I would say is make sure you get together a team of people and you have that team behind you. And that, you're keeping yourself in the loop with all things business so that, you can really take advantage of benefits of being a business owner. Yeah.
I love it, love it, love it. Yes. Jay has been a part of me and my husband's team and Team Out of Two for years. And so we just thank you for gracing us with this conversation. And like I said, I know we want to do a multi-part series because I don't think that we really talk about finances and our money enough. And so these are just some of those high-level conversations that I want to start showcasing just to help other business owners who are also on their paths to growing and scaling their businesses. Again, this is Megan Aderele, and my special guest tonight is Jwuanita Core of JIT Tax and Accounting. And if you are interested in, working with her, go to jittax.com/book-online. And if you're interested in my next upcoming workshop, just go to meganaderele.com/systems with a S workshop. And it will always also be linked inside of tonight's show notes. Love and light to you all.